Camera, screen, demo. Okay, I'm back at my code again. What debug allows you to do is to tell PyCharm, I think everything above line 16 works, but I'm having a problem at line 16 or below. So what I'd like you to do is run the program as if there's no breakpoint. That's what the little red dot is, called a breakpoint. It's basically telling PyCharm, run the code until you get to 16. And then I want you to stop and I'll tell you what to do. So let's go ahead and run that. Now, the way that you run the debug, run, no, I don't want to run that one. Debug, and it's going to tell you we're running July demo. So I'm going to go ahead and run July demo. I'm going to open up this output window a little bit. And it starts running the code. So the first thing it's going to come to, it says data points equals int input, right? So it's asking me to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 4. I want 4 data points to evaluate, and then we're going to add them, average them. I'm going to press the enter key, and it stops because I had a breakpoint set at line 16. Can everyone see that? Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume yes.
Yeah, I see it.
Great. Notice what the bottom output window immediately did. It did a dump of all the variables and what values are being held in the variables. Notice that up here I say data points equals 0, temp data string equals null, and total value equals 0. But notice it says over here data points 4, because when I actually input the value and data from the user, it assigns 4 to data points. It says it right there. Data points has 4. We okay so far?
Yeah.
There are 2 tabs here. One is debugger, one is console. This is what the output window looks like. This is what Python is doing with the variables and the values in memory. So here we go. I'm going to single step through this program to see what effect it's going to have on the data. So the way you single step, I'm hovering over that icon. If I hover over it, it says step into. It means that it's going to take the program one step at a time. And when you're running the code like this, it gives you the opportunity to see if everything's working okay. So I'm going to execute line 16. So I'm going to click this once, and I want you to notice something. For point num in range data points is 4. Point num is equal to 0. That makes sense. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3. That's what it's supposed to be doing. So everything's working okay so far. Now I'm going to execute line 17. Now you said, where the heck is line 17? It's supposed to be a print function. Let's take a look. I'll go to the console screen, and it says enter data point number 1. How we doing?
How are you executing one line at a time?
Right here.
I see.
This says step into. You see the little tag that says step into?
Yeah, I see it. I'm clicking it now.
Okay. So what's going to happen now is it's outputting enter data point number 1, but it's not getting any data because we need the input function, right?
Yeah, I see it.
So where do I put the input function?
Immediately after the print statement.
So I really should have done this, right? Input what?
Well, you already have the printing part there, so you really just don't need to put anything other than maybe the double the quotation marks.
But there's no input, so how am I going to get the data point?
Instead of print, you put input?
If I put input, I can't put the double pieces. I can't say enter data point number and then point num plus 1, and then later on put a quotation. That's the problem that people are emailing with. Can't you put it on the same line? And the answer is no. Python doesn't allow you to put it on the same line. Print, you can put multiple parameters, but input, you can't. So in order for this program to work, let me run it now with the input. Well, first I need a variable. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. Temp data str is equal to, now I'm actually adding code because I'm going to rerun this program in debug. I'm going to stop execution. If you can see my cursor circling around the red square, that red square means to terminate. So if I stop the code, it's terminated. Okay, I'm going to run the code again, but I just wanted you to see what I did. I printed out enter data point number 1, number, and then it's going to say point num plus 1, and then a colon. It's not going to do what we exactly want it to do, like on that output screen that we had, that I sent you the output PDF file. But this is the only way that I can get this thing to gather data, but output what point I want. Let's try it and see what it does. The little, what looks like a bug, means debug. Don't remember that? Under run, debug, July demo. It takes a couple of seconds for it to respond. How many data points? 4. Okay, so I'm at my breakpoint now. It's telling me my data points equals 4, which is exactly what I wanted. My temp data string equals nothing, because I initialized it to nothing. My total value is equal to 0. Equal to 0. Let's keep on going. So now I'm going to single step in. For point num in range data points, single step in once. So point num should be equal to 0 because I'm in a for loop. 0, 1, 2, 3. There it is. It's going to output data point number 1 because I'm adding 0 plus 1. Let's see what it does. I'm going to click on the single step. Let's take a look at the console. There it is. Enter data point number 1. Now, if I execute the next line of code, it's actually going to be waiting for me to enter data. What you're looking at the screen right now is what Python does when you use the input function. So I'm going to go ahead and put the number 5 in. Okay. And let's go back to the debugger. Well, it's right now asking for data. But you notice that I'm putting data in 6, 3, 7. Now, it doesn't exactly look right. It says enter data point number 1, and then it goes to a new line so I can get the input. Because up to this point, we have no way of telling Python, no, wait over there for the data. And don't go to the next line, but you have a way now, all right? And that's making use of bypassing the defaults that the print function actually has. So let me bring you back in time. The print function allows you to get data to the screen, right? You can output multiple pieces of data to the screen. What you didn't know was that there's a default that when you output the data to the screen, the very next thing that happens is it imposes a new line character, so it goes to the next line. You want to try to tell Python, I don't want you to do the default. I want you to bypass the default. Do all of you have access to the document that I sent you yesterday about the print function?
Yes, I do.
Good. Does everybody else have access to that document? Erin, Noah, Elena, do you have access to that document?
Let me see.
Not
Do you know
sure.
how to exit out of the full screen on the, like when you share the screen, my computer like makes it for the full screen, but I don't know how to.
Did you press the escape key? Maybe it'll come out of full screen mode.
Press view options at the top.
Noah said to click on view
Oh,
options.
there we go. Thank you.
What email? Was it in an email?
I sent out an email yesterday, and it was a document that talked about the print function. I sent an email and said, you're going to use this tomorrow, or we're going to need this.
Is it like the Python's built in?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Python's built-in output tool. It's
Right.
at the bottom of the class overview session email, where it's saying we're going to talk about 2 topics in the Zoom session.
See it now.
Okay. I want you to pay particular attention to the piece that's, if you look, it says print open parentheses, and there are different pieces. I want you to pay particular attention to where it says sep end. Sep, abbreviation for separator. If you want Python to put a character between each piece that is output to the screen, that's the argument that you use. Sep equals and something. End is what we're going to be focusing on this morning, or this afternoon. By default, the end piece in Python, the end parameter is new line character, \n. So it forces the print function to put a new line character in every time you finish the print. We don't want that. We want the cursor to stay at the end of the print function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the code in what it would look like in order to do that. Okay? So this is what the piece would, let me just, we can do it together. Print. Joe, can you give me that verbiage again? Will it say enter or something?
Yeah, let me.
Enter the data point or enter data point number?
Yeah, enter the data point hashtag. Then you had the I, or in this case, the num something.
Pound.
Then you had like a space and then a colon. I'm doing this from memory. I'm actually trying to find your.
It's okay.
Oh, I found it.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna
Enter
do it
data
right now.
point hashtag.
Point num +1,
Yeah.
quote.
Then yeah, end quote. And then you have a colon, a space, and then we have our input, the user input.
Yeah. So what we're going to do here is we're going to tell Python, first of all, I want to get rid of all the spaces that are going to occur in between each piece. Because I want you to take a look at something. This is a detail. Don't get on me for this. Just a detail. Do you see this right here? It says enter data point number 1 colon. Can you see that on your screen?
Yes, I see it. And then on the second line is the user input. It's not all on one line.
Yeah. But for the print statement, pound or hashtag space 1 space colon.
Oh, we don't have that space in the text. It just sort of, the comma automatically does it.
That's right. But I don't want to see a space between the hashtag, the 1, and the colon on the screen.
Yeah, you need to change the default separator from a comma turning into a space to having no space.
That's right. But what I'm saying is what the effect of the sep parameter allows you to bypass the space and put in nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add sep equals quote, quote. That tells Python, don't put a space between the components that are separated by a comma. But here's the big golden nugget that allows you to keep the cursor at the end of the line so that when the next line of the input is going to occur, we're going to get it to work. End equals, this tells Python, don't put a space and don't go to a new line, because when the next line of code is executed, I want you to allow it to look like we're inputting from the previous line. So we're done. So now I have to add now an input. So temp data str is equal to input, open close parentheses. I don't want the input function to say a word. Just get the data. Let's try it and see what it does now. I'm going to run it in debug. Okay, we're at the same place, right? It's asking for the data points. I'm going to put in 4 and press enter. Now, the data dump look exactly the same. 4 data points, nothing's in temp data str, total value equals 0. I'm going to go to the console so you can see that I'm not trying to pull anything over on you. I'm going to single step into the program. This is the step into key. Click it once, click it again, and let's see what we're doing here. Okay, hold on a second. I got some, I'd like it to do some tabbing because it looks ugly. So I'm going to do 2 tabs. I'm going to stop it and just run it because I think I can run the code now. Okay, so I'm going to do 4 data points, but you see what it's doing now. Now what we have is the ability for the system, it prints out enter data point number 1 and holds. It doesn't go to the next line. It's executing the next line because it's waiting for me to put data in. I'm going to do 4, press enter, 6, press enter, 7, 3, we're done. So this is one of those things where, like I said, I got a number of people saying things like, how do you get it so that it's on the same line? Because the input function doesn't allow it. That's the way to do it. And if you ever have to do this again, what you can use is take advantage of some of the defaults and say, look, I understand your default is to put a space in. Notice that the space between the hashtag, the number, and the colon no longer exists. If I take that away and say, no, I want you to go back to the default, let's run the code again, and so you can see what the effect of not having the SEP default modified. So I'm going to run it again. Watch what it does. Notice the space between the hashtag, the 1, and the colon. Right? You say, I didn't put those spaces in. You're right. You didn't. Python did. 4, 5, 6, 3. But SEP equals quote, quote, allows you to tell Python, don't put the space in. I want nothing. And that's why you have to add these pieces. SEP equals quote, quote. So running it again, let's do it again. You should notice that the spaces are now gone. 4, 5, 6, 7, and I have my output. Okay? How are we doing?
I'm having an issue with the, I'm doing this on the programming assignment number 2, because that's where we had the problem. Trying to get the debug mode to
work.
It keeps opening up this second page of code that I didn't write, where it's describing like the.
You mean like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, and I don't know how to get out of that.
You can't. What you can do, however, is let me show you what you can. Joe, is that you?
Yes, this is Joe Gersh.
Yeah. So let me show you why that's, first of all, what this is what the code looks like from Python that's actually executing your print or input. It looks ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to. Notice up here, here's my actual Python code. This is what Python is executing to accomplish your request. Okay? So let me close out of this so I can show you how to move past it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and do run debug. So the code is running in debug right now. I'm going to do 4. This typically happens on the print and the input. So let me show you how you can kind of bypass that. Here's my data dump. There's my console. This is the most frustrating thing for people when they're first learning how to do in debug, shifting between There's my variables. There's my console. Variables, console. So I'm going to go ahead and click on single step, single step, single step. Notice that it jumped to the module to process the input. Okay? You don't have to worry about that, Joe and company. Just continue to operate the program as if it's running fine. So I'm going to go ahead and press 5. And let's see what's going on here. There is a, let me do it again. Joe, if you take a look, can you see my screen?
Yes.
On the left-hand side, there's like a little right-hand arrow.
Yeah, it says resume program.
It's got a little tail on the back.
Mm-hmm.
You click that once and it should allow you to continue. And then it moves forward. Okay? You won't get that if you're running in full run mode. Okay?
Yeah,
Professor?
Yeah.
You've been getting different average numbers? Should
Yeah.
that? Oh, because you've been entering different digits. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about Python. It
Yeah.
actually watches what I'm typing, right? So yeah, I've just been putting arbitrary numbers in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is the perfect segue into the next piece. But before I do, are there any questions of what I've done?
not for me.
Your microphone is muted.
I have a question about just like what you put under it, like temp data string, like equals input. Like, why do you put temp data string there, and like just the stuff under it? Like, why is it those, like, I guess those, I forget what you call them. Just those values right there.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you asked. So 18 and 19 in my code, you would look at that and say, why did you break it out like that? Why did you break out? The input function always pulls a string, right? So
Yeah.
why did you pull it into a string variable? And then the very next line is you convert the string data into integer. Why did you do it separately? Normally, we just say int, open parentheses, input, right?
Yeah.
For the reason. And it's the very next thing I want to show you. Now, this particular program does not have any type of error correction, right? We don't have the try except logic in here. So the reason I wanted to have this session is because I wanted to show you, introduce you to, get your feet wet on developing a function. And I thought that the error evaluating, if you put in if you put a word instead of, see, now watch what happens if I run this program and I just happen, how many data points? Computer. If I press enter, the program bombs, right? You're putting a data value in that's not an integer, and you can't turn, if you look at line 19, you can't turn that into a value, right? It's a string. That's why the program bombs. So we developed our try except logic as a means of telling Python, listen, Python, if the person types a word instead of a number, don't crash. Give them a chance to retype it in. That was the whole point of the try except logic. So you'll see, you'll get your answer in about 6.5 minutes, Noah. We're going to write the try except logic right now, but we're going to do it as a function. Okay? Now, up until this point, everything we've been doing is basically one block of code. The only functions we've been using are things like the print function and the input function. You've been calling it that, probably having no idea why we did. So we're going to fix this to make it a function-based program. You'll see more about this in the notes related to functions. Okay? So let's go through this piece by piece so we can do it together. The very first thing that we're going to do, and I've noticed that a couple of you are already starting to touch and dabble with functions, which I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding. It's pretty complicated. All right, let's do it very slowly. First thing that I want to do, I'm taking all of my code here and I'm going to turn it into a function. Here's how what Python needs to see to create a function. You have to tell Python, I need to define a function, and I'm going to call this function main. Take a look carefully. DEF is reserved in Python for function definition. Main is considered the main or the primary code block that is going to exist in all programs. We call main at some point, but we have to declare a function first. And now, remember in the for loop, we loop the code, everything that's indented is looped. Remember in the while loop that everything's indented is looped. The same thing happens here. What we have to do, I'm going to show you something else that's kind of neat. I'm going to take all of my code because I have to indent it. And you no longer have to go to each line, tab, next line, tab, next line, tab. Here's a way that you can do it with one button. I highlighted my text, my code. I pressed the tab key once. There's my indentation. I can see that all of you are incredibly amazed by what you can do with that one key. So, okay, I'll move on. Now, that's my main function. What I need to do is I want to write a new function that's going to be used to evaluate the data and see if it's accurate. You recall some of the code that was necessary for the try except logic? Do you remember it? Don't all answer at once.
Yeah, I remember. You have try, except, and then else. And I looked up on Google, there's actually a finally. Basically, the try part always executes, and then it looks to see if except a certain kind of error.
Right.
And if that error happens, then do that code. If it doesn't happen, go to else and do that code.
Right.
So you either do the except or you do the else. You don't ever do both.
Correct.
And then at the end of that, you have finally, and then no matter what happens prior, finally will always execute. So
Yeah.
try, except, else, and finally.
Yeah, and we're going to keep it a little bit simpler because all we want to try to do is just try one thing. One thing. And so let's make up the name. And I say this carefully because when I'm about to type, I'm willing to bet you from this point forward, every one of you is going to call your function to check data this exact name. So we have to come up with a function name that is going to serve the purpose of evaluating data we send to it. What do you want to call the function? I'll pick somebody. Any thoughts?
I already talked.
Always talk. All right, let me just pick something. Hold on a second. I'm losing the monitor here. Okay. Let's just call it check data or check value. Okay. Now, one of the things that we got to be careful of, what we're going to do is we're going to send check value a number, a value, some sort of data. And this code is going to evaluate if it's really a number or not. And then it is going to allow us to return back to the main function, okay? So this is premature because you already have the notes in the lesson for this week, but I'm gonna go through it as an example. So I'm gonna send it. So what I'm gonna do is in my function main, I'm going to send value, check value, some sort of a string. We're going to use this string in the function to check and see if it's an integer or not. The way we check if it's an integer is we try to convert it to an integer. Okay, so let's go through the actual try except logic. Okay, so I need to declare a variable here. Try. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to take whatever this value is and convert it to an integer and place it into the variable called value. If it works, great. If it doesn't, Python is going to generate what they call a value error. So accept value error. What do you want to do if the value error is thrown? What do you want to do? What's the next thing that has to be done? Aaron, I'll give you a chance. Everyone seems to be talking over you, so I figured I'd give you a chance.
It has to go back up to that check value again.
Well, if the person typed in the word computer, what do you want to tell me?
Like, please enter a valid data point.
Well, you have to tell them there's a mistake, right?
Like invalid data point.
You have to tell them there's a mistake, right?
Print.
Can somebody else help out here?
You'd want to print an error message first.
Hi, James.
Sorry, I'm late. I was out with my dad.
No. I'm just saying hello because your beautiful face is still popping on the screen. All right, so print, you entered incorrect data. Please re-enter. And then we have to, okay, I'm going to put a close parentheses. And then I have to say,
Would you want to do continue?
Sorry?
Would you want to do continue first, or
Continue, what do you mean continue?
like the phrase continue, which would make it restart the sort of like that loop?
Oh, well, no, you don't have to, and I'll show you why in a moment. But we have to ask the user for input again. Okay, so input, enter how many data points will you be processing? Okay. Okay. This is what try except is going to do. But the one thing that we forgot to do that nobody said anything, we have to have a while loop in here or else it's going to terminate. So while true, right? And we can get this thing indented by one tab, okay? So what's going to happen is this function is being written so that this variable is going to be the number we're going to pass to this function. We're going to go into the loop. We're going to try to turn that value into an integer. If it works, we break out of the loop. If it doesn't work, we tell the user, you enter incorrect data, please re-enter. Ask the user again. What we have to now do is return back to me what we just did. So return value. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come here. Actually, we're going to come here to the data point. Actually, I'm going to do it here. So this is saying temp data string is equal to whatever the user puts in. If they put in computer, if they put in 4, if they put in 19, we're going to assign it to this variable. So Noah, you would ask, why did I do it this way? Here's what I'm going to do. So what's going to happen, we have this function written just once. We can call it anytime we want, no matter where we are in the program. So watch. Temp data is equal to, take whatever the user typed in this step, in line 34. Take whatever they typed in and pass it up here. Then what I want you to do is to try to convert what they typed in as an integer. Assign it to the value, the variable value. If they put in a string, it's going to fail. It's going to say, you entered incorrect data, please re-enter. It's going to ask them for the value again. It'll keep them in this loop until they put the value in correctly. Once they put a number in, it's going to break out of the loop and return the value back here and assign it to temp data. I know this is awkward to understand because you haven't been through the notes yet, most likely, but it will be helpful. I'll post this online so you have it. So I'm going to go through this very slowly with you so you can see it. And then once we're done, I'm going to stop after we execute this program. Okay? I'm going to set the breakpoint not here, but I'm going to set the breakpoint here when I try to execute the program. So the only thing that we have to do, we have to add one more line of code, and I'll explain this in a moment. And I'll explain what this is going to do. So starting from the top, I have a function called check value. We're going to take a variable called value str and evaluate it to see number or a string. This is what we've done in the past. Hit the value. Someone's got some. I may have to mute everybody if it gets louder.
I was gonna say, that might be I think my parents are printing something. Sorry about that.
It's okay. So once the variable is determined to be a numerical value, this value is going to be returned here. So we have two functions here. We have a custom function called check value, and the goal of check value is to evaluate if the user entered a number or a string. We have a function called main, and that's our main program, which uses check value inside this code. This little piece here, this little standalone piece, tells Python that's where I want you to start the program. Even though it's at line 44, it's exactly what Python does to start the program. Now, here's how it works in Python. You take your code. You tell Python, here's my code, start to execute. Watch what it does. Python looks at the first line and says, oh, I see a function called check value. I got to make note of that. Got another function called main. I got to make a note of that. Is there anything else? Nope. Now let's go back to the beginning of the code. I got a function. I got a function. There's where I start. It says, start running the code in function main. It scrolls to the top at line 20 and says, first thing that I have to do is print. This program will evaluate. Declares these variables, initializes them, asks for input, goes to the for loop, asks the user for a value. Now we're going to take that value and send it up to check value and to see if it's actually a string or a number. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to execute this code so you can see it working. And you're going to see it jumping all over the place. Once you get into this code, the very next thing you're going to see, Python is going to shoot it up to the top and say, okay, I got to be doing something up here. So let me go through this piece by piece. It looks scary, but it's just starting to, ooh, we got a problem. Return value. Let's see what it did. String value. What did you guys see? What is this the code that you generated when you did your checking for? Is Joe still with us or is he gone?
I'm here.
Did you see that? Does this code look familiar to you?
No.
How did you generate your else?
Well, I typed it. I'm not sure what the question is.
Okay, so what did you do in your code to evaluate your try except logic?
You mean for the assignment or just now during our discussion?
Just in general, what is does the try except logic look good?
Yeah, I can't see anything wrong with it.
What about the else logic?
That should break out of the while loop, you would think. It should stop the while loop right there.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, hold on a second. Let me just check something.
The way I have it, I had break under, it'd be after value equals integer value string, you put break. Because then it, like after it converts it to an integer, then it'd go back to what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, if you, let me just, I'm going to return here because I got too many screens open up at one time. So one of the things that you run into is that if you put, there are actually 4 components. Joe was talking about it earlier, that there is a, you've got your try, you got your except, you got your else, and you also have your finally. So there's different pieces that you can actually run in order to make it, work. So I'm just trying to take a look at something really quickly. If you just hold for one moment. And just give me a moment. Yeah, something's a little odd. Yeah, rather than keeping you guys on the session, what I'm going to do is let me return back to the session. What I'm going to do is let me take a look at the code because we're getting to the 1 hour mark, and I said I wanted to try to keep it to an hour. Now I'll share the code with you so you can see it. It's not something you have to know like right now. I just wanted you to have some code so that you could see what to do when you get to the last lab activity for the week. Okay, so we did go over quite a bit. I mean, we went over the primary piece was to show you how to use debug if you need to use debug. We also talked about taking a look at using that SEP parameter and the end parameter so that you can actually modify the way that Python works with different pieces of code. If you don't have any questions, we'll terminate the meeting. I'll get the code to you so you can see it. And then if we need to have another meeting before the end of the week, which means Sunday. But before I go, would you like to have another session Saturday or Sunday as far as a review for the midterm?
I would. These are very helpful.
Yeah, agreed. I would definitely appreciate one as well.
Yeah, so now I'm going to ask the $99,000 question because I never seem to be able to get the time just right. When is a good time?
Can we do like Friday all during the day since we don't have a project or anything to do?
I'll do it anytime you want. I'm going to be in town for a while. The problem is I don't think we can come up with a universal time for everybody. So
It's a tool online. You can, everybody can like sort of like click in if they have the link and we enter in like the schedule we're available in, and then we could just, whatever overlaps everybody works. But that's more of a long-term solution. Short-term, Friday evening would be fine as long as it's after 5.
Okay, is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, that should work. I'm heading to New Jersey Friday, but I should be there by 5.
Okay. Erin,
Yeah, that should work for me too.
Elena, you're okay with that?
Yeah, Friday's fine. 5.
And how about you, Margaret?
Yeah, I'll make it work.
You'll make it work, my girl. That's great. Okay, so I think, Noah, you okay with that? I want to make sure that you're all right.
Yeah, I can try to get there. I might be out of my house, so I can try to get back.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can actually interact on the on your cell phone as long as you have access to an access point. You should be okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Then I'll post something online, but I'll get this code to you guys. I just wanted to go over that print piece with you and show you debug. And that's about it. I hope you guys have a safe day. Try to stay cool. It's going to be hot. But I look forward to talking to you guys soon.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, guys. You have a good day.
You too.